Hi all, nice to see you today. Natalie Blank here from SOULLL, Seers of Universal Life Lessons Love. Now, today I want to talk to you about looking after yourself within the framework of SOULLL. So I've talked a lot in the past about how we're going to relive our lives from the point of view of those around us. And that could lead someone to think that, A, you've got to take whatever anybody gives you, even if it's negative, because if you don't, then you're going to have a horrible interaction to live with. And I've done a video about how that's not the case, that we need to be real and understand that people who treat us badly are not doing that in a vacuum. They're doing it to other people as well. And by being upfront and saying to them, this is not acceptable to me, that you're actually allowing them to learn and stop doing it to people. The same thing kind of goes for ourselves. So I think we've all had times in our lives where we're not particularly nice to ourselves, where we make choices that can lead to us feeling very negatively about ourselves. And it's like the theory of abundance, the law of abundance, that the more you allow something in, the more you experience that something, the more it comes in. So the more you're nasty to yourself, the more you're going to have experiences where you find reasons to be nasty to yourself. So if you look at your life and you see you're generally good to people, you don't gossip, you don't do things that cause people pain, you make ethical choices about what you buy, you recycle, you do all of those things, and you're generally a really good person, and then you look in the mirror. And you look at yourself in the mirror, and what do you say? Are you saying kind things? If you're standing naked in front of the mirror, what are you saying to yourself? Are you being kind? Are you being kind to this vessel that holds your soul, that gets you everywhere, that allows you to do all the things that you need to do in life? Are you kind to it? Or are you nasty? Do you focus on the fat? Do you focus on this doesn't look the way you'd like it to look? Do you focus on the physical as opposed to what's actually inside of you? Because what's inside of you is much more important than how you look. The other thing I want to ask you about is, if you make a mistake, if you do the wrong thing, if you make a mistake, how do you talk to yourself? Now, this was a big one for me. I was pretty fortunate growing up. I had a body that, for me, fortunately at that time, was in fashion. Not that I really kind of appreciated that at the time, of course. We often don't. But so I wouldn't stand in front of the mirror and go, oh, lumps and bumps and fat and da-da-da. But I would, if I felt I'd made a mistake, I would tell myself how stupid I was and how dumb I was and how I wasn't as clever as other people around me, and nobody else would make such a stupid mistake. And this went on for a really long time, and it actually became social anxiety, where I would have a coffee with someone or have a dinner with someone and then spend sometimes hours, sometimes days afterwards thinking about every part of the conversation and dissecting it and figuring out ways that they could have been offended by what I said. Now, I eventually got the guts up to actually ring one of my friends that I was doing this about. We'd had a dinner together, and I had convinced myself that I had said something that she was really offended by. Now, she had given me no signs that she was offended. Not a single sign. She hadn't said anything. She hadn't done anything. She hadn't contacted me afterwards and said, what you said was really offensive. Nothing. But I was assuming that what I had said and done was offensive. So I finally found the strength within myself to ring her and apologise. And I rang her and I said, I'm really sorry for da-da-da. And she said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, I said something the other night when we were having dinner, and I was, you know, really aware afterwards when I was thinking about it that could have been really offensive to you. And she said, Natalie, if I was offended by what you said, I would have said something, or I would have contacted you afterwards and said, that upset me. And please know in the future that if ever you offend me, I will say so. Now, that was huge for me. And it's actually led me to be able to say to people that I meet now, when I've known them for a little while, to say to them, here's the thing, guys. If I ever say anything to you that upsets you, please come straight to me and tell me if I've said something that upsets you, offends you, if I'm not behaving in a way that you feel comfortable with, please let me know. And I've had a few people at times who have said things, and it allows me the chance to recognize that, apologize, but I don't have to spend my life beating myself up and thinking how stupid I am and how terrible I am and how I make terrible mistakes that nobody else makes. And I think this is really a powerful thing, because I also had a funny time with my guides when I first started getting into recognizing my psychic abilities and having contact with my guides. Was I felt that they needed to beat me up, metaphorically. That if I didn't do something that I thought I needed to do, that my guides would treat me badly. And one day my guides came to me and said, Natalie, we can't talk to you like this anymore. We can't keep being negative to you anymore. That's you asking us to do that, and we can't do it anymore. So we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to be kind to you. When you do something we ask, we will recognize it and we'll be really pleased about it. If you haven't done something we've asked, then there's a reason for that. And you will do it eventually, and we're okay with that. Or maybe you won't, because it's actually not the right thing for you, and we're okay with that. And that's when I started deciding that beating myself up was not the way to go. And so I learned to be much kinder to myself. And with SOULL, I've learned to be much kinder to myself. I did go through a stage even with that I was being very harsh on myself. And I think even we all have moments where we're very harsh on ourselves. You know, the house isn't clean enough, that we're not being the best parent we could be, that we're not being the best partner we could be. And we beat ourselves up, and our kids and our partner and our house can be fine, but we don't think we're doing well enough. So if you think you're not doing well enough, I'd like to suggest you ask the people you think you're not doing well enough by, ask them what they think. Ask them, say, you know, am I letting you down? And ask them to be honest. I mean, obviously, if you're dealing with somebody who has a pattern of putting you down, then this is not the thing to do with them. Do it with people who are positive people, who come from a really good place. Okay, so the whole thing about living within the SOULL framework is recognizing your foibles, your faults, your challenges, recognizing them, learning them, and going, okay, I procrastinate. I have a tendency to procrastinate. So what can I do to change that? or not. Maybe you want to keep procrastinating, and maybe it's okay in your life to procrastinate. And so if you can say, okay, this is my foible, this is my fault, this is a challenge I have, you can decide if you want to change it. And if you do, decide that you're going to slowly change it. You don't have to fix it at 100 miles an hour. You know, it might take you 5 years to get to a point where procrastination isn't a problem for you anymore. Or you might never get past that. You might still find you procrastinate, but that you are okay with it. And you should be okay with it because you're human. Okay? Unless your faults and your challenges are about being nasty to people, then you can stop beating yourself up about it. And even if you are being nasty to people, you can decide, okay, it's time for me to change. If it's about gossiping or bullying, and you recognize that you bullied somebody, then if you don't have the ability to go to them and say, look, I'm sorry I did that, that was wrong, and I recognize that now. Sometimes we can't do that. We can't find it within ourselves to do that until we're stronger ourselves, and maybe never. You can start by deciding you're not going to behave in that way anymore. And you can say, okay, I've decided I'm not going to behave this way anymore. If I start feeling that I'm doing it, what am I going to do to stop myself? And come up with a plan. The other thing I want to say is, if you're not thinking well of yourself, why? What is so awful about you that you don't deserve forgiveness? Have you done something so terrible you couldn't possibly be forgiven? Now, yes, there are people who have done some pretty awful things in life, but the general population of human beings, and this probably includes you, has not done anything that's so terrible that you cannot be forgiven for. Okay? Another person, the person you wronged, might find it challenging to forgive you, but you can also forgive yourself. You can also stop and say, okay, I forgive myself for that wrong. I recognize it's a wrong, and I'm going to move forward doing better. And yes, it's nice to have the forgiveness of another person, but it's as much about forgiving yourself for being in that situation, for doing that. So if you need forgiveness from someone else, then it's time to go, okay, if you're looking at yourself and you're looking at your choices and you're going, really, I did the wrong thing and I can't get over it until I get that forgiveness unless I've had that conversation. Well, you may never get that forgiveness, but depending on what you did. But you do need to recognize it. And you can go to the person and you can say to them, look, I recognize I did this wrong. And I am really sorry. And I'm asking for forgiveness. I know it might not be, you may not be able to do it, but I am asking for it because I am truly sorry. And as part of my apology, I'm making a promise to avoid doing this behavior again. And that's what most people want to hear with an apology. They want to hear, well, no, not most people. There's a really good book about apologies. So I'll post the link to that in the comments when I'm done. There's 5 things that we need to cover in an apology, but the recognition that you've done the wrong thing, the recognition that you're going to try not to do it again, I think is probably a big one for a lot of people. So getting that forgiveness from someone else is great, but also finding a way to forgive yourself. So if you do something stupid and then you beat yourself up about it, then go, okay, well, I'm really sorry that I did that something stupid, but I'm also really sorry that I beat myself up, and I forgive myself for both of those things, and I'm going to try not to do it again. Okay, so I hope that's kind of explained it a little bit. And I suppose the thing about it with soul is you are going to be reliving these things. You're going to be seeing as well the little person inside of you that is hurt by your nasty comments to yourself. There is that aspect to it as well. If you are continually beating yourself up and saying horrible things to yourself, there's going to be a consequence to that. So please be kind to yourself. Be nice to yourself. It doesn't mean go and spend a lot of money. It means find that peace within yourself with who you are, because I can guarantee you that for most people watching this, you're a lovely person. You're a really nice person, and you don't really have that much that anybody could say is really horrible about you. Or if you do have something that somebody might say, well, I don't really like that about them, it's something you could change really easily. And it's something you could tweak in your life and be more positive in your world. Okay, so that's all I've really got to say about this. So be sure to subscribe, join the Facebook group if you've watched this long, join the Soul group if you're not watching it in the Soul group already. Be sure to subscribe. I'm also putting this up on YouTube. Post your questions in the comments, or your comments in the comments. I'd love to know what you think about this. And I will either answer them by return video or in the comments. And remember to like and share and join the group and like our page. You can also find the video and all the other videos that I've made. If you like what I've got to say here, you might like other things I've had to say. You can find that on www.natalieblank.com.au/SOULL, SOULLL, or you can just go to natalieblank.com.au and click the Soul button. It's pretty obvious on the page. And be the seer in your own life. Thanks for watching. Bye.